keep going.
I'm here with Bailey, Kevin, and Kai, the wonderful people of People and Company. We're talking about their book, Get Together, a guidebook for building communities. How would you define community?
We define it as a group of people who keep getting together over something they care about. And we found the most vibrant communities are communities that allow people to participate, to contribute, and to add value. But for me, going in this journey of making this book, one of the things that has been the biggest takeaway is that phrase, keep showing up. The people are sort of what's in tech language sticky. It's what keeps you coming back. And we've heard people use almost that exact phrase of they come for the blank, but they stay for the people in so many different communities. And so I think what happens over time is that relationships deepen. Folks are talking about things that go beyond what they show up for. And you start to have meaning from the experience. So I think the most obvious thing that happens over time to start is that people get to know each other and understand more about what you might be interested in outside of this, what skills you might have outside of this. And if the community runs for long enough, what that means is also it can then do more. Like if people keep coming back and you understand, oh, Kai's a great photographer, maybe we could have him take some photos, or this person's gonna raise their hand to add value in a different way. But if you don't get to know someone sufficiently, you can't understand how they might want to add value.
One community we write about in the book is EdCamp, which is an organization that hosts events where teachers teach other teachers. And I think one of the really special things is at the first EdCamp event, maybe there would be 100 teachers and some of those folks coming for the first time to EdCamp Brooklyn. But after they meet and have this experience, the types of conversations and how they speak to each other, the level that they connect just changes after that. You can see it in like how they message each other on Twitter. Teachers use Twitter in a way that I did not realize. It is, education Twitter is a total thing.
Yeah.
But just how they interact after sort of that first get together changes, and then those subsequent get togethers when they come back, it's sort of like that. I mean, to use the language in the book, like the fire is sparked and it's like it starts to roar.
Passion is the spark, the very beginning. So it's the thing that binds you before you've met all the people that you will be participating in that community. So it's fundamentally important, right? It's the thing that will get you out of bed. It's the thing that will just, get you to just get to the subway station. It's a very beginning of what we all know is a very long ritual and very long process. It's not until you've been able to participate that you start seeing and getting to know the people that getting you to go back.
A huge component of the book is obviously the case studies of the wonderful community leaders that are doing the work every day. And what's amazing is how it lines it up against the tactics that People and Companies approach. How did you create the set of tactics that could span all these different cultures?
Well, the book started as pretty much like with our very first client. And so very early on, when we were working with companies or with clients or organizations, we had to set a common language in working with them. And so literally the very beginning of this book was really based on really your and my previous experience, I would say. We had both done research and advised other communities, but we almost just on a whiteboard said, what is common between your experience building Creative Mornings and my experience building Instagram? And we had step by step what a community does to grow and what organizers need to do to grow it. And then we said, okay, data set of 2. Let's pressure check this and let's push it a little further. We ended up just talking to people through research we did with organizations. And Kevin has been coaching people very actively, like almost every single day. You're meeting with a new community. We have a podcast. I think in the very first tactics were guests that we made that were informed by these sort of extraordinary experiences that you and I had. And then we knew from the beginning that we had to go out and talk to other people, ordinary people who had built something truly remarkable. And so it became an exercise of really reaching out to people that any of us had read about and sort of looked up to. And it gave us a reason to say, hey, can we talk to you and ask you some questions?
I think one thing that's special about the tactics is the order. We've had coaching office hours with probably over 100 different community leaders, say people starting something very small, like a group for moms, to someone running an artist residency. And the most common challenge is not, hey, I don't have enough ideas of what to do. It's what do I prioritize right now and why? I think from that early framework and through conversations and research and participating in so many different communities, we got to understand better, what are those things that pay off like compound interest if you get right earlier on? If you want to create more leaders within your community, how do you expect those leaders to lead if they don't have the ability to communicate with others within the community? They need that sort of plumbing and that foundation. It's not just tactics, but it's also an order of operations that allows you to really know what you need to focus on right now.
Do you want to be able to reach the people who care about your why, the thing that you're building? Do you want them to be stoked about what you're doing? And do you want them to keep coming together even when you're not there, when you're not the one hosting? Do you want people to be able to connect with each other and you're at the very center of it?
I know the book advocates for, I think you call it serving up your origin story. What is the origin story of People and Company?
This all started with curiosity. I think a lot of people start a company with like a product and a business, like a product market fit. And we started People and Company with a question, which was, can we create more clarity and more of a methodology around community building? Because like Kai said, we had all had personal experiences with something that when you spend time in a room with people that passionate, it's just remarkable. In the data, someone may look the same number, that 10 out of 10 cares about what you're working on, that talks about it to all of their friends, that sort of like lives and breathes the thing that your company is working on or your organization is working on. They'll look the exact same in the data as someone who doesn't. They're just measured as like, one person logged in, perhaps. When you put yourself in a space with people who care that much, it is undeniable how powerful it is. And I think we saw this world of really quant-oriented, really skeptical folks and trying to communicate this magic of passion and of a pull in people who show up by raising their hands to folks who are more analytical, process-oriented thinkers. We craved validating this passion space with some more rigor and with some more sort of like almost scientific approach to community building.
Going off the origin story of People and Company, what's the origin story of the book?
It was once a zine.
Yes, I've seen
Then it was a
the
Google-
evolution of man.
It was a Google Doc.
Yeah.
One of the first things we had to do was establish a common language. And that involved kind of this like community building 101 presentation / training at the start of each client project. And through that, I think it became clear, it's like, what if there's 6 steps, 7 steps, 9 steps, 2 phases, 3, like it'd be good to write this out, whether that's a takeaway. And we started doing workshops at conferences and such. And the original intention was, let's make a zine, And I think this is the most resource-intensive, time-intensive zine, because it was like a year or something like that, and the zine has still not been produced. And I think that's antithetical to like what a zine is supposed to be.
Yeah, 100%.
Okay, never mind. So at some point, and I remember, it's like zine sort of pages became essays, and those essays became chapters. And through all of this, our kind of research and time with different communities and community leaders continued to bring in new, diverse examples. We would work on a project on running, and then we'd run with different run crews around the country, and it's like, wow, there's new perspectives that we would love to highlight, or a new community that would really hit home the point around pinpointing your people. And so at some point, I feel like I was the one that sort of rallied our team around this idea of like, we should stop calling it a zine, and this is a book.
If your goal is to create clarity, a really good tactic is writing. Writing something down and saying, we're going to print this and we're going to make 20,000 copies of this. Are you absolutely sure that this is the language you want to use? Are you sure that you want to include this point? It made us really pin down that we are 100% certain this is precise. This clarity is documented in a very physical, specific way. It was a really good tactic to do what we want to do, which is create more clarity around community building.
We just took a lot more time to write people a much shorter letter so that my daughters, a 7-year-old or, CEO of a company could understand exactly what they mean when they use the word community.
Sometimes when I talk to folks who aspire to like, quote unquote, make an impact, I think what better way to make an impact for people with people than to have a thriving community of people to carry on the work of this organization or group or side project way after you're gone. And I think that's what really the magic of community is.
So once a reader picks up this book, how do you hope the world changes?
We ask people to be brave. The number one thing that we hear from anyone organizing any community of a fear is the same. Do you feel like you know what it is?
That no one's going to show up.
No one's going to show up.
No one's going to show up.
No one's going to show up. Day 1, no one's going to show up. Day 15, no one's going to show up. It's this fear that's in everybody's head. And I think once you put it down and you say it out loud, it feels a little bit better. Communities are great for growth. They're great for growth. But in and of themselves, they're not necessarily about growth. The thing that we're asking people to be is brave. What we promise to give them in return is a little bit more confidence, a little bit more clarity, a little bit more inspiration. And my hope is that the process of getting this book out more and talking about it more means that we continue to learn about more people who are doing this work in really amazing ways and build relationships with them, put them up on a podium, tell their stories.
The phrase I most often use, which is also the thesis of the book, is build your community with your people, not for them.
Part of why Stripe was excited to publish this book, and something that Stripe thinks about a lot, is how we can be good stewards of technology. What advice do you have for companies on how to use this framework to become good stewards of technology?
It's easy to forget that you're trying to build out your user base, you're trying to build up your memberships. We use all these terms to describe the people that are actually consuming, participating, enjoying, loving, yearning for what you're bringing to the world. And we consciously, very selectively chose our company name. People and company. It's our reminder to each other that, behind the numbers, behind the data, there are people.
The build with thread reminds me a lot of one of Stripe's what we call operating principles, which is users first. It's the first one. It will never change.
Yep.
What are companies missing that don't either have the community team or the community mindset? What do they miss out on?
One of the reasons that I started this company and invested in writing this book was through my experience growing Creative Mornings. I was convinced on what's possible when you collaborate with a bunch of passionate people. What happens when you truly provide the right structure so people can become new leaders? And I started to look at that this was not a unique story, that this could apply to any organization, whether you run a nonprofit or a giant company or a small business or are starting a meetup. There's so much that's possible if you start to look at your people in this sort of way.
Why did you publish the book with Stripe Press?
There's an alignment of values about how we see getting a book out into the world. For you guys at Stripe Press, this is about offering ideas that can really help entrepreneurs, can really help the people that use your products, and can offer value to people when they're thinking their way through hard things. For us, that's also what this book is. We want to get this book to people who really need it. I hope this is step one of many more thoughtful conversations that happen about community, and trying to push that word further and trying to get more people to think about how it shows up in their life, and whether they're a leader or just a member.
Yes.
Choosing to bring intentionally benevolent, social, generative relationships into your life. This doesn't start and end with People and Company or Stripe Press or this book. This is something that I hope everyone will continue to think about, just with a little bit more discernment and intentionality. To us, I think it's a beginning point, and we're really hoping to meet more people who are also passionate about this question and want to keep growing its reach in the world.
Get together on 3.
Come on, Brie.
1, 2, 3.
Get together!